Wir haben eine relativ lange Reise hinter uns bei Mister Spex, beim Markenaufbau von 2008 bis heute auf der rechten Seite. Dazu kommt, dass Marketing und Branding im Speziellen eigentlich auch ein Hobby von mir ist und darüber erzähle ich ein bisschen was. And I'll do it in English because I think that's what I was asked to do. So this presentation is going to be successful if after you've heard it, you want to engage with the topic of building a brand. The second thing is, you know at least a little bit how to position a brand and how to create a purpose for a brand. And the third thing is, you know at least roughly what you can do to make a brand work. Now, what is a brand? A brand is created in the minds and hearts of the consumers. It really encompasses all the associations, the thoughts, the emotions, the perceptions that the consumers have about your product, your organization, or your service. And you want it to be strong. Strong means you want it to be evoked easily. You want to evoke those associations either by a category name, by your brand logo, anything like that. So that makes a strong brand. A strong brand is firmly established in the minds of the consumers. Second, it's unique, so it is identifiable. And third, it's positive, obviously. You want positive associations. But we're talking about performance brands today. And what makes a performance brand? Well, it's very simple. It drives behavior. It drives action. You want action. You want that people start to purchase your product. You want them to pay higher prices. You might want them to tell other people about it. You know, you want to drive repurchases maybe. So those associations that you're trying to create, they need to be relevant in order to have impact. So you don't only want to be unique, positive, deeply anchored, you want to be relevant. Now, zooming out, how and why can brands be relevant for consumers? Well, the brain uses a lot of energy, and you want to reduce the level of energy for the brain. So the first thing is, if you want to grab your favorite product, you want to find it easily. You want to just grab your drink, pay for it, and drink it. Right? So it provides orientation, makes it easy for the brain. The second thing is, if you have a hard decision to make, let's say you want to have a credit because you don't have enough money, and you are a bit unsure, well, you can read the terms of conditions, or you can just say, you know what, I'll go with a safe choice. But usually when you talk about the brand, it's more about the idealistic, the psychological value that a brand can create. And the first one is intrinsic, right? You want to maybe treat yourself. You want to reward yourself for something. So you pick the very expensive champagne, right? No one else sees it. It's just for you. The other thing is, the brand can have a psychological value extrinsically, right? If you wear cool glasses from Palm Angels, obviously people will assume you're cool too, right? Why would you otherwise wear it? So, I mean, we have a fantastic collection of Palm Angels, Off-White, Ambush, right? Check it out, right? If you want to check out the extrinsic value of brand, try out for yourself. So, brands provide orientation, they help you reduce risk, the consumers to reduce risk, and they satisfy deeply anchored emotional needs. Now, why is that relevant? Because it helps your cause, it helps you be more performant in your business. A couple of mostly online examples. If people know your brand, they might start searching for it, so you don't have to pay for it. They type in Mister Spex, and you don't have to pay Google. The second thing is, if you recognize your name or logo, they might click on you and not on your competitors, and you have higher click-through rates than your competitor. It makes it cheaper. The third thing, if they trust the brand, they will purchase, and if they like the experience, they will repurchase. So it does drive business performance. It helps you grow, it helps your margins. A relevant brand helps your business. Now, how to create a performance brand now? The first one, I need to clearly define who I want to be. And the second thing is you want people to learn that, right? It's a learning experience. And you all know from school, repetition, continuously, consistently, coherently, so you start learning. That's what you need to do, to communicate that. Now, what makes it so difficult to create that target image of a brand? It's basically because there are a gazillion different associations that you could go for. And if you want to make it a little easier, you start structuring the problem. And if you structure all the gazillion different associations, the thoughts, emotions that people might have about your brand, it basically comes down to this on the right-hand side. People can think about the benefit. So they can think we're about cheap glasses, or they can think, no, Mr. Spex is about fantastic brands and glasses for great value for money. The other thing on a psychological benefit level, right? They could think, well, it's a stiff, cumbersome process at the mercy of a perceived expert. Or the benefit is an open, joyful shopping experience. The next thing is the attributes, right? People can think about, well, what do they actually do to deliver that value? So for example, if you want to say great value for money, you could say, well, for every frame, you get a 1.5 lens that is fully coated of high quality for free, even if you pick a Tom Ford frame. Then people go, that is why you deliver that value. Those are the attributes. The other level is more on the emotional side, the tonality. What is the tonality, the personality that is experienced when they when they experience your brand? Is it a traditional, stiff, conservative, medical process? Or is it maybe an open, digitally supported, modern shopping process? And last not least, the appearance side. That is basically what you do to make people learn and know that you have those attributes and those tonalities. It's the pictures you show, it's the language you use, it's the stories you are telling. And that all needs to be learned. And we said it needs to be relevant, right? It is only relevant if it's guided by deep human needs that then define the purpose, why you're actually building that business. And then you define what value propositions, attributes, tonality, and appearance you are delivering to cater to those needs. Now, it's a little bit more complicated even than that, because it's not only that you want to be relevant for consumers, you also need to be perceived to be better than the competition, right? Everyone knows there's a deep human need for chocolate croissants, right? Now, if someone else offers better chocolate croissants right around the corner, you might be out of business, although it's important, right? You're just not perceived to be better. So you also need to be perceived to be better. And the other thing is, someone needs to do those chocolate croissants, right? Someone needs to build that brand. It's actually your team. Now, it needs to be meaningful what you're doing to the team, so they can start delivering the experience and the perceptions that you want to have to create those associations. Long story short, you want to create relevant associations that drive behavior that helps you perform in your business. So, if you start, you need to know about the target group. Why? Because people are different. You know, there are people who just purely see frames as a functional utility, right? They only buy frames when they break. Functional replacers. There are others who see this as part of their identity. Their look, it's a fashion accessory, right? And you need to know who you cater for. Now, we cater for people who like digital services and who see themselves not only as someone who wants to see well, but also want to look great, and they see frames as an accessory or part of that identity. And we can break it down into sub-segments, and we know the size of the sub-segment, we know their needs, we know the media they use, we know how much money they spend, we know where they're shopping. So that is how you define the target group. Now the next thing is, now you need to find out what is relevant for that target group. And you do that through market research. And remember, you want to drive behavior. So what you look at on the left-hand side is you look at, well, how does the brand actually perform? Your brand and all the competitor brands. Do people know them? Are they engaged? Do they purchase? Are they loyal? For the competitors and yourself. And then you look at the images out there, those associations of your brand and the other brands that are already in the market. And then you look at correlations. You build a regression model. And you look at, well, if people know we have Palm Angels and other great independent brands, did that make a difference? Did that drive them to engagement or purchase? Or did that not make a difference? If it makes a difference, it is relevant. And that you can measure. So what you come up with is basically a list of stuff that is very relevant for your consumer target group. Now the question is, how deep do you go? How deep do you go in that list? Do you only write good service, or do you go deeper and more psychological? Now I'll suggest to go deep. Why? Because trends change, technology changes, but deep human needs, they stay. And there's a fantastic tool. This is based on Limbic Map from Nymphenburg, and there's also a great tool from Decode here in Hamburg, and that maps the human emotion and drives, all of them. And let's run through them. There are people who are really driven by dominance and autonomy. Then there are other people who are driven by control and discipline. There are other people who need harmony and security. Others want to have fun and be engaged. There's others who want stimulation and creativity. And there's some who want adventure. And this is really, it's a fantastic tool because it is interlinked, right? I mean, if you think about someone that's very dominant, right? If they want to have stimulation, they go on an adventure, right? If there are people who are in deep need of harmony or security, you can either become a control freak to get that security, or you maybe seek out your friends, your family, to find that harmony and security in socializing. It's a fantastic tool to really give you a search map to find out what might be relevant on a deeper level for your target group. It's an old example, but a quick one. But you can even use it for very basic things like beer. So there's a beer that uses the drive to autonomy and freedom, like leave me all alone, right? This is my beer, leave me alone, right? Or there are people who want to have that joyful adventure. Or there are people who just want to say, I don't want all that bullshit, I just want good beer. And remember appearances? Now what do those beer brands do to make people think this is more for autonomy, or this is more for no bullshit beer drinkers, or this is the one for the adventure? Well, they use codes, right? They use a sailing ship to trigger the feeling of freedom and adventure, or they use the soul guy at the beach, right, to have that feeling of autonomy, or they use the only true beer, Warsteiner. They use this. So you can trigger those deeper emotions by using visual codes. Okay, now you know what's relevant, and ideally you know it on a very deep level. The second thing is you need to check if you are better than the competition. Pretty easily done, you just ask consumers. Now, but what we're talking about is a strategic endeavor, right? You want to know about how to position the brand for the future. Now, your current strengths might not be the ones necessarily relevant for the future. I mean, take Elon Musk, right? He had a big dream. And the capabilities he wanted to build for an electric car were, he wanted to have the capabilities to build batteries, control electronics, and control the software. And that's the capabilities he built. And now he's got that strength, and no one can take it away from him. So what you need to do is, in addition to the relevant associations that you want to create for consumers and check that you are better than the competition, you need to look at the long term, and then you need to look at yourself and your organization. What are the values? What are you driven by? What are the capabilities that you think you would put in so much work and effort, and you're still into it to build that capabilities, because it are your motives, your values. And then you put it all together. And then you decide, do I want to build this, or do I want to build this? Do I want to come across like those, or do I want to come across like those? And more and more and more. Now, in a condensed version, what Mr. Spex is about is basically we inspire and empower people to get their look that they desire with ease and expertise, so they can buy and wear glasses with joy and confidence. Now, we've also broken that down in something like the wheel. No time for that today, but we've also condensed it a little bit. So, you want to understand consumers deeply and then ensure relevancy of your positioning. Now, back to learning. Now, what do you need to do to get that target image into the heads and minds of the consumers? The first thing is you need people to help you. An agency, your own team who designs the products, the experience, and you need to brief them. Because you have learned so much by now. And you need to let them know. It's one of the biggest mistakes to not brief in a detailed enough way. Because otherwise, it's a lucky shot. If your agency, your teams don't know what is relevant, the chances that they come up with an idea that is relevant is pure luck. And the two biggest excuses for bad briefings are usually, oh, I was busy. The other excuse is usually, I didn't want to restrict the creativity of the agency by being too narrow. Well, they are creatives by heart, right? You cannot restrict their creativity. What you can do is let them know everything that you have learned so they can come up with relevant ideas. And if they have an out-of-the-box idea, they'll come with it anyway. That's why they're creatives, right? So this is how detailed we brief. It is like for TV spot. I see the guys who did the TV spot, they know how detailed we brief. Thanks for keeping up with it. Okay. Next thing, you always need to measure your creatives or broader your stimulus, your products or service, because you need to know if they are relevant and good. Because if you put media and marketing money behind it, a lot of media spent makes a bad message, and then you can start optimizing the rest. And 3 questions are important. 1, you ask consumers, what is the message of the product, of that creative? The second, is it relevant to you? The third, do you like it? And if not, you need to start over again. Don't put money behind it. The third is, now we're coming to the effectiveness and efficiency of marketing spend. You want to measure impact. Now that's tricky again, because the impact of the brand is short-term, mid-term, long-term. Can you only start measuring one? No, not enough. You need to measure it all. You need to triangulate to get the full idea of the impact. So you want to have click attribution to know what immediate sales effect a brand campaign or whatever might have. The next thing is you want to understand the relationship of money in and revenues out on a daily, weekly, monthly level to get all the spillover effects and the intermediate time decay effects, right? Because people might have seen the TV spot, but they haven't run to the shop the next day to buy, or the minute to buy glasses. They might take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks to actually go to us, make an eye test and purchase. So the effect can be quite long. And the third is you need to measure if you are actually building a brand. You need to measure if people know you, what they think about you, if it's relevant, if it's positive, if it's unique. And if you know all those 3, then you start understanding if your brand is starting to work. But be pragmatic. Just an example. So if we start pushing our stores, we have 59 fantastic stores by now. If we start pushing our stores on TV, now how am I going to measure the impact? Quite hard. Right? Because how do I know if someone went into the store in Stuttgart if I put on a national TV spot showing the stores? Well, you simply ask. You make a little questionnaire in the store in Stuttgart and ask people, well, how do you know about us? And then you can ask, was it influencers, was it TV, was it Google, was it display? And then you just take money per mentionings. How much money did you spend for those mentionings in Stuttgart? And you will see, if you shift media spend, you will see that those scores, those mentioning scores, they shift quite quickly. You can measure that online, you can measure that offline, wherever you want. So be pragmatic, right? Think about the desired behavior and start measuring it. All right, so now we know the target image. You've started to create creatives, products, services, that we have measured and we have put money behind it, but there was one more component, and I do want to highlight that as well. It's your team. Very often, you think about, well, why doesn't the brand really come alive? And what you can do is just ask your team as well. Very simple questions. You ask your team and each individual department, right? You just ask, well, do you know about the brand positioning and the purpose? Do you like it? Is it meaningful to you? Third, actually, are you actually working on it? Are you working on the brand positioning or something else? And then, what about your colleagues? You might be working on it. Are your colleagues working on it, or are they working on something else? And if you analyze that department by department, you actually know where you need to go to advocate your brand, to make them work on your brand positioning in an aligned fashion. So you can basically measure everything. That's why you need to create the clarity through briefing diligently. And then, by the way, creativity is the byproduct of hard work, right? Don't jump to conclusions. Generate, a rule of thumb for me, generate 8 alternative ideas. If you've thought about a project and came up with 8 alternative ideas, chances are there's a good idea among them, right? If you jump to conclusion with the first idea, rarely a good one, rarely a good one. So that's a lot of hard work. And then start measuring. Measure, 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 but be pragmatic. So, how do you build and manage a performance brand? You understand consumers deeply. You ensure relevant positioning. You create the clarity in your team. And you measure your delivery. Simple as that. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Mirko. I hope you don't mind me switching back to German.
No, können wir machen, ja?
Ich heiße Marvin, ich bin von OMR Reviews und wir bauen gerade die relevanteste deutschsprachige Software-Bewertungsplattform. Und wir haben gerade deine Rede gehört. Du hast erzählt, wie man datenbasiert eine Performance-Brand aufbaut. Und was mich jetzt natürlich brennend interessieren würde, ist, welche Rolle hat die Auswahl der richtigen Tools, also der richtigen Software und des richtigen Tech-Stacks eigentlich in dem Prozess für Mister Spex gespielt?
Naja, ich meine, die Welt ist so datengetrieben, du hast so wahnsinnig viel Daten zur Verfügung, ne? Klickdaten, du kannst noch Marktforschung machen etc. Und um die vernünftig analysieren, bearbeiten und nutzen zu können, ist die Toollandschaft schon ziemlich wichtig. Ich würde aber sagen, was noch wichtiger ist, dass du auch dort die Intelligenz nicht versuchst, in irgendein Tool wegzudelegieren, sondern dass die Intelligenz, die muss bei dir bleiben. Du musst genau wissen, was du mit dem Tool eigentlich machen willst, ja? Was die Objectives sind, wie ich Erfolg mit dem Tool messen kann. Ja? Und das kann ich nicht wegdelegieren zu irgendeinem Tool. Das ist die harte Arbeit, das ist genau wie bei Kreativität. Das ist noch wichtiger als die Toolauswahl.
Also 10% des Investments in das Tool, 90% in die Intelligence in-house. Verstanden. Und welche Tools findet man denn eigentlich bei Mister Spex so im Tech-Stack?
Naja gut, ich meine, wir haben ein Frontend-Tool, da nutzen wir tatsächlich noch Intershop und bauen es, machen jetzt haben so eine Headless Frontend-Architektur oben drüber. Wir haben natürlich sowas wie Images oder Dynamic Yield, aber ich glaube, der größte Schritt für uns war, dass wir unser Data Warehouse nochmal neu strukturiert haben. Vor ein paar Jahren haben ein neues Datenmodell genommen, haben einen Stacked, also ein strukturiertes Modell mit Cubes, auf die wir zugreifen. Und daneben ist ein Mass Storage oder Lake. Auf dem Lake können unsere Data Scientists arbeiten, können Prediction Models machen, können Scores machen. Wir machen auch unsere eigene Click Attribution mit einem Markov-Modell. Und dann können wir die Daten in die Tools schieben, die damit dann arbeiten. Und ich glaube sozusagen, diese Kontrolle und dieses Verständnis und die Insights, die wir intern aufgebaut haben über das Tool, was by the way in Azure liegt. Ja, wir haben das in der Azure Cloud und greifen dann auch mit dem Machine Learning Layer, mit Random Forest Trees und was nicht alles, oder Random Forest Modellen oder Markov Chains oder wie auch immer auf die Daten zu. Also lange Rede, kurzer Sinn, das hat, glaube ich, den großen Unterschied gemacht, ja, dass wir das selbst strukturiert haben, selbst hosten und damit eben selbst unsere Modelle bauen.
Okay, extrem spannend, vielen lieben Dank. Und die letzte Frage, und dann lass dich auch gehen. Ohne welches Tool, ohne welche Software kommst du nicht mehr durch deinen Arbeitsalltag und kannst mit der Audience noch teilen?
Na gut, also muss ich natürlich ein Tool nochmal erwähnen, weil über diese ganze Datenebene vergisst man manchmal die Nutzerperspektive. Ja. Und da ging es natürlich auch drum. Und da gibt es zum Beispiel so ein tolles Tool wie Rapid User Tests, wo du einfach sagst, ich brauche mal schnell 10 Nutzer, die gehen mal schnell über die Seite und das wird schnell mit Video aufgezeichnet und mit Voice und ich kann mir ein paar Stunden später die Nutzer anschauen, wie sie mein Produkt nutzen. Und diese direkte Nutzerperspektive nie zu vergessen, sondern sich auf einfache Art und Weise ins Haus zu holen, ja, das wäre zum Beispiel ein Tool, das würde ich nicht missen wollen, das kann ich auch wirklich einfach nur empfehlen.
Also Rapid User Test merken wir uns. Vielen lieben Dank dir, Mirko, für die spannende Rede.
Super, vielen Dank. Vielen Dank.